In this chapter, we're going to take a closer look at laying out and arranging our pages using CSS. To get things started, I'd like to explore block tags a little bit more, so let's open up the tryout blocks HTML file in your Chapter 7 folder of the working files. I'll open it up in the browser first, and we can see that we've just got some text and a header to work with. And let's go ahead and open this up inside of our text application too. Now, we already saw a little bit of a preview in our last chapter of what we're looking for here. We saw that our tables have borders, margins, padding, and backgrounds. And actually, inside of HTML, all of our block tags have those same properties. So in this file, let's try them out here on a simple paragraph. Let's start out with the visual ones. I'll just use border and background, and we'll set up a style right up here in the style tag at the head. I'll add a P for paragraph selector, add our braces. And for a style rule, let's first add a border. Now I'm going to use the shorthand method of writing the property, and that means I specify first the width, and let's set it at about 2 pixels. Then I specify the line type, and we'll use solid. And I finally specify the color. And I'm just going to use the named colors for this instance. I'll just set it at blue. Now while we're at it, let's go ahead and add a background too, just to see what that looks like. Of course, I'll use the background color property. And I'll use a named color again. Here I'll set it to light blue. There are lots of references on the web that give you an example of exactly which colors you can use. But for an easy start, you can use all of the main colors, red, blue, yellow, orange, green, and you can use light and dark versions of those colors as well. Now let's save our changes, and let's see how that affects our page. Now it's much easier to see this paragraph as the block that it is because we can see the border around the outside. And as we would expect, this border does resize and change with the size of the page. Now let's try some other properties. As we saw in our tables, blocks have a width and height property. So let's start with a width property. I'll set ours up to 300 pixels. You can use any of the measurements that you like, but I'm going to stick with pixels for our example. And I'll save our changes. We'll go refresh our page and take a look. And now you can see that that paragraph is limited to 300 pixels wide, and the block is showing the exact extents. Now, normally the height will flow with the contents of the paragraph, but we can set height as well. For starters, let me set a height that's definitely bigger than the paragraph is right now. I'll go back into my style rules and we'll add a height property, and I'm going to set that also to 300 pixels. We'll save our changes, go take a look at the page, and you can see that the block now extends lower. And our background and our border show that extension. Now without the background and the border, the paragraph would still extend that way, but you would just see any items down below the paragraph pushed down on the page. Now, what do you think is going to happen if we have a height that is shorter than the existing paragraph? Well, let's go back and try it out. I'll go back and change this height to 50 pixels instead. Now that should be shorter than what we have content for. I'll save that change. We'll go back out to our page and refresh. And you can see that now we have our paragraph block and the border and background showing us the 50 pixel height. But you can see that the paragraph spills out of it and goes down below. Now it's definitely helpful to see the border and the background in this case. And when you turn that off, it's a little bit harder to establish what's going on. But technically this block ends right here on the third line, even though we have more text to fill it. And using this setup, we can also explore another property of our block tags, and that is overflow. Now the default value for overflow is visible, and that's why we're seeing the text spill out of the box. If we had another paragraph below this, we'd probably see the text on top of one another as these two overlap. So let's go see what we can change inside of our document. Now, if we didn't want to see the contents of our paragraph spilling out of the box, we would use our overflow property to control that. So let's go ahead and add an overflow property here. I'll indent it like the rest of them. And we can try out some common values for overflow. One really easy one is hidden. This simply won't show the contents that don't fit. I'll save our changes, and we'll go back out to our site. When we refresh, you can see that all the text down below there, including half of the characters here, are not shown anymore. Now that's not going to be too helpful if you actually have text in your block and you want to be able to see it all. So there's a couple of other ones we can use. Instead of hidden, we can use scroll. Now this works for text and for other contents inside of your block. Now, just to make sure we can see it okay, I'm going to change the height to a little bit bigger than 50 pixels, but still smaller than my paragraph. Let's try 90 pixels. I'll save my changes, and we'll go take a look at our page now. Now you can see I've got my 90 pixel block. I still have my text cut off, but now we have a scroll bar automatically appearing on the side. And it's fully functional. I can scroll through the text or whatever content I had inside. You can still see the blue background on the inside, but now the border includes the scroll bar as well. And with the straight scroll property, you can see that it adds a vertical scroll bar and it adds space for a horizontal scroll bar. Now, if you don't want to see the horizontal scroll bar, you can go in and choose another value for the property, and that's auto. Auto will automatically put a scroll bar up if the content's cut off, but if there's enough room to fit all the content, the scroll bar will disappear. That means if we don't need a sideways scroll bar, we won't see one of those either. So let's save those changes, and let's go back and take a look. Now we still have our scroll bar on the right-hand side, and it's still functional, but you can see the one along the bottom has disappeared. And if we went back to our document and either made our box taller or removed the height restriction altogether, I'll save that change. We'll go back out, and you can see that if there's enough room to fit all of my content, that auto property doesn't have anything show up. Now I want to try some other things out with styling, so I'm going to remove the overflow for now since it doesn't affect anything. And next we can take a look at margins and padding.